This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. This is your host, Tim Link, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. We have a super exciting show. One of my all-time favorites, my best bud and friend. It's been a little while, but he's got his latest book out called A Farewell To Arfs, part of the Chet and Bernie Mystery series. Of course, we're talking about the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author, Spencer Quinn. And we've had Spencer on the show many times because he's always fantastic as far as learning a little bit about the latest in the Chet and Bernie Mystery series, talking about the animals and the mysteries in general. Then obviously we never let him off the line without picking his brain about how he masters his craft. So it's going to be a fun show. Everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms. And our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Joining me now is New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of the Chet and Bernie Mystery series. We know him as Spencer Quinn. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Good to hear you again.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. I'm glad you're back on. I'm super excited to see when the book has come out and learning a little bit more about the latest and greatest of what's going on in the Chet and Bernie Mystery series. And, of course, the new book's called A Farewell To Arfs. So love it. Always love that tongue-in-cheek and that action there. So tell us a little bit about the book and some of the mystery without giving away the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, well, first of all, let's start with the title. This is the 15th Chet and Bernie novel. They can be read in any order. People always say, should I start at the beginning? The narrator of this series, Chet, the dog, who's not a talking dog, would never ask a question like that. Right? You can read them in any order. So in the beginning, I thought up the titles myself, and I still think up some of them, but I also get a lot of reader suggestions. I have a file that must have 200 or 300 suggestions, and I use some of them. And if your suggestion is picked, then on the day the book comes out, you get a signed copy.
Nice.
So I love this title, A Farewell to Arfs, but what I missed, and so I grabbed it. It wasn't my idea. It was a reader suggestion. The obvious thing that I didn't see was it has the word farewell in it. And so a lot of readers from day one, I was getting emails all in caps. Is this the last of Chet and Bernie? What do you mean farewell? And I had that's so obvious, but I had missed that. So
I didn't know that.
I want to say off the top that it is not the last of the Chet and Bernie series.
Yay!
Thank you. It's the title I like. Okay, so I'll circle back to the idea of this series is that these are detective stories in the model that was really invented by Arthur Conan Doyle, where the sidekick of the detective tells the story in the first person. Bernie is the detective. Chet, well, he's not a sidekick. He's an equal partner, but he tells the story in the first person, and he's a dog. But the most important thing about the series is he's not a talking dog. He's not a human wrapped in a dog suit. He's as canine as I could make him. And that makes him, for the purposes of a crime fiction novel, an unreliable narrator. Because crime fiction, mysteries especially, have a very strict format of lining up a chain of logical clues and drawing a deduction. Well, Chet can't do that. He isn't good at logical chains. And even if he was, if an important clue was about to be revealed, he might sniff a forgotten bologna sandwich behind the piano, and he misses it. So he's unreliable. And when you marry the unreliable narrator to this strict format, all of a sudden you've blown the whole thing up. And that just became fascinating to me, and it opened up this whole world of things you could do in writing that I never expected to find in this series. So as a kind of example, here's the idea of Farewell to Arfs without giving too much away. But, we have to remember that in the human world, we're so visual, right? And everything's through the sense of sight. Well, that's not true with dogs, right? If you know dogs at all, if you've ever watched them behave, their sense of hearing and their sense of smell, these are like it's like we only have one little set of radar, just one little antenna. Well, they've got three, right? And the visual one isn't even that important at times. Their sense of smell and hearing are so much more powerful than ours that their perception of the world is very different. And so a lot of the Chet and Bernie series is told through those senses because that's how Chet is seen. So this is what a common crime these days, and I'm sure you and all your listeners have read about it, are these scams. Where a caller pretends to be someone else, or you get an email that's pretending to be from somebody else, or a text, and basically they want money. A new wrinkle in that is that AI, artificial intelligence, is being used to replicate human voices. So let's say you're a grandmother and you have a grandson, and some bad guys somewhere in Eastern Europe, or they could be anywhere, Nigeria or here, get hold of a little snippet of that grandson's voice. They can then make it say anything they want. They don't have to have the grandson saying exactly, I've been arrested on a DUI. I need $10,000 to get out, Grandma. Can you help me? And here's how to send the money. They just need a little thing like Merry Christmas, Grandma, that they got somewhere, right? Not so hard to do. And then they've got that. And they just tell the AI, make it say this. And so when that caller calls up Grandma with the DUI, she's not doing anything wrong. She knows her own grandson. But here's the thing. Everything in artificial intelligence, it's just this agglomeration of human stuff that goes in, an enormous pile of human stuff that goes in, and how humans deal with things. So I thought to myself, okay, that voice, the grandson voice that's faked, right? It's faked in order to fool a human hearing on the other end. Well, Chet isn't a human. His hearing is very, very different. Would Chet be fooled by a AI voice pretending to be someone else? That's where I started A Farewell to Arfs.
Very nice. Very nice. A hot topic. It's in the news for sure. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more about the whole AI experience or bad experience, the good and the bad a little bit later. But pulling from an existing thing and tying it into, well, I wouldn't say typical, but a Chet and Bernie mystery. You've got your format, I can see, and you've got your starting line. How do you blend that in? Because as you said, your fans are very, very wise, and you have to be very careful of how you position things. And there's certain expectations I know that they have of both Chet and Bernie.
Yes, there are expectations. And of course, and you're onto a very good point, Tim, because I know the readers, they make it very clear that they're out there. Because, Chet's on Facebook and has a blog and everything. So I get a lot of incoming all the time. At the same time, these aren't cozies. In the mystery field, we talk about cozies like Agatha Christie. They're not hard-boiled either. They're a combination. And I think it makes them actually more realistic, even though it's being narrated by a dog. But what I'm trying to get across is that dark things can happen, right? And the thing with Chet is that and dark things can happen to him, but he resets very quickly to his normal state. And his normal state is one of joy in life. And I think that's one of the things the readers have glommed onto. And that's something I will never fool with. Chet is not going to fall into some kind of existential depression. That's not in the cards at all. But in terms of plotting, so look, that's a very important thing. I was once at the Tucson Book Festival, and I was on a stage with other writers. I'm sure you've seen that kind of thing too. Other writers on stools.
Right.
And, sometimes with a drink in their hands if it's late in the day, and that's bad. That's bad news. And an audience member said, what do you do about writer's block? And the other two writers bemoaned this terrible affliction of writer's block. But knocking on wood, I said, I've never had it. And how's that possible? Well, if I feel that I'm going to be confused or I don't know where to go, just before that happens, I step back and I remember the heart of the book, the spirit of the book, the engine that drives it. Okay, now you have to have an engine driving your book. If you're a writer who doesn't have that, this won't work. But if you do, I step back and I think of the engine, the beating heart of the story, what's driving the book, and then some narrative route always suggests itself. The beating heart of the Chet and Bernie series is the love between Chet and Bernie. And if I feel I'm going to get stuck, and every dog owner knows this love, right? Mm-hmm. I don't even like to use the word owner, by the way. Every person who has a dog in the family.
Right. A human companion. That's how I refer to it.
They're in the family. There's no question about it. They're a family member who looks a little, who's different, but they're in the family and they know it too, by the way. We just had this, we've got Dottie is our dog at home. We've had many, and she's a half Bernese, half golden. She weighs like 90 pounds. She's not fierce or anything like that, but she's really big and, forceful. And we just had a new baby grandson, and he was in the house. He was so gentle and protective of him right from the get-go, because it was family, right? So things like this, I will never disappoint the reader. These are central to the stories, but dark things can still happen. But in plotting the book, okay, so I started with what I told you about, the AI and the voice and all that. Well, then I have to construct a kind of story that is going to involve that. Well, there has to be somebody who is fooled by this, and that whoever that is going to be some sympathetic kind of character, right? And in this case, I have Bernie's neighbors, the elderly Parsons, these who are recurring characters in the stories, and they have a son who's kind of wayward, right, who's been in prison, and so I had all that ready to go. The readers, now of course I touch on that again, but the readers, the setup is right there. And then you have to have, well, who are the bad guys and how do you get hold of them? And that led me into this whole world of some of these high-tech bros and the kinds of plans they have and the huge thoughts they have, like going to the moon and living forever. These guys are separating from us. Have you noticed that? And some listeners, there are these guys, they've left us. They're dreaming dreams. It's not just that they're dreaming these dreams. They're doing things to make it happen. And there's a dark side to that. The book, in the context of a mystery narrated by a dog, A Farewell to Arfs, explores all that.
Two things that just came up in my mind when you were talking about all this is, one, keeping the narrative in place, the constant theme of love and the partnership that Chet and Bernie has. Do you have to, in this book and other books, do you have to reference back to that at times as far as a reminder, or is that just constantly drilled in your mind that here's the nugget, we're going to build around that nugget? Here's
the thing, when you're writing, at least for me, I can only speak for me, but when I'm writing, when I'm sitting at the keyboard and I'm writing, I'm halfway into there. I'm here, but I'm not. I'm really partly there. So these characters, Chet and Bernie and all the others, are quasi-real to me. And I don't have to force them to do anything. The love between them just comes out in things they do and things Bernie says or doesn't say, and just like that. So it's always there, but I'm not thinking, oh, now ring that bell.
Right.
It rings itself.
Got it.
That's what I'm saying.
I love that. And when you're talking about being part of the writers forum in Tucson, I've been part of those, and you don't really know. You hope the audience is asking questions. That's the first thing. If they're not asking questions, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But when you're part of all that, your comment about never having writer's block, and I could see that within you, and I would see the opposite. I would imagine, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, there are so many ideas and plots that Chet and mysteries and things that Chet and Bernie can be getting involved in, that it would be difficult if I was in your shoes of picking which ones I want to talk about next. What's relevant, what's hot, what's interesting, what do I know about, more so than just trying to figure out how do I dredge through another book.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I have a number of, I know there's going to be more Chet and Bernie, and I kind of know what some are going to be about, because there are larger arcs in the whole series, but they can still be read in any order. But it involves some discipline. My mom taught me a lot about writing when I was a kid. And one of the things she said was advance the story.
Nice.
Let's say you think of some beautiful scene of swans on a pond at the end of day and the light is turning their wings purple and all. Like, if that isn't advancing the story, no matter how beautiful it is, it's out. And I'm very, very strict about that. So everything has to advance the story. So any extraneous thing like that you're talking about, even if it could be useful in some other context, is not going into this book.
Nice. I like that. Good, helpful tidbit. I often hear from writers, some that have been doing it for as long as you have and some that haven't, they come up with some sort of a unique thing that they want in their book. And oftentimes, though, their editor says, it's not relevant. And that's one of the things you don't want to hear as a writer, is that something you put your blood, sweat, and tears in, and they say, that's not relevant to this whole story.
What I want to hear from the editor, and I've been very, very lucky in my career, because this mostly happens, is love the book. Here are 3 small suggestions, that I can handle in a few hours. And I get that, but I don't let the book go if I have the slightest doubt about anything. I remove all doubt. Okay, so some writers, they just get so sick, because it's a long slog, right?
Yeah, it is.
But some writers just get so sick of it, that they think, okay, I know that this chapter doesn't really work, and this is maybe should be somewhere else, and this character, the backstory's wrong. But they say, okay, but my editor's sharp, and I'm just going to give it to her now, and then we'll work it out in revision. I sympathize with these editors. They work very hard. They work harder than they used to in the old days when I started, because, there are fewer of them. Everything's been pared down. And if I were an editor, I'd want something in a perfect shape, So I make it so the surface is so gleaming that there's no place for them to get their chisel in and start seeing what's inside.
I love it. I see, when I will say, I love the editors, love my editors, God love them. You're right. They put in a lot of good, hard work, and they had to walk a fine line sometimes of dealing with the author and dealing with the story.
Absolutely.
But I always imagine my wife does a lot she's a business analyst, does a lot of writing and rewriting from a technical and a business standpoint.
Yeah. And
she has this, in the olden days when we used to do things by pen and paper, she had this giant red pen and constantly was marking, okay, that's wrong. That's a typo. This is wrong. This doesn't. So that every time I hear the word editor, that sort of envision, that tells you how old school I am about it. I envision that red pen coming out and making changes to everything I've just put down on paper.
Right. Well, of course, now it's all done through track changes, and all that part of the process has been speeded up amazingly. I mean, I used to have to, print out the document or actually type it in the beginning in a typewriter my couple of books, and then go to a Kinko's and have it copied and then FedEx it. I mean, all that's gone. It's that I really like. I really appreciate all that.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back and continue our chat with Spencer Quinn, talk to him a little bit more about the book Farewell To Arfs, and also want to talk to him. He brought it up about this whole AI thing. Is it the end of the world or not? So everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Hi, this is Tim Link, animal communicator and pet expert and host of Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have you ever wanted to know what your pet is really thinking? Do you want to find out if they truly understand what you're trying to tell them? Or wish you could build a better understanding and closer relationship with your pet? Well, now you can. Learning to Communicate with Animals is a 4-part on-demand workshop. In the workshop, you'll learn the essential techniques that are necessary to communicate with animals, including what is animal communication, breathing correctly to achieve the perfect state to communicate with your animals at a deeper level, using guided meditation exercises, a method to communicate with animals, and how to send and receive information from your animals. So if you're wanting to learn how to communicate and connect with your animals at a deeper level, visit petliferadio.com/workshop and purchase and download Learning to Communicate with Animals. You'll be glad you did.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. And continue our conversation with New York Times and USA Today best-selling author Spencer Quinn. Now, Spencer, when everybody picks up a copy of the book, Farewell to Arfs, I know that's a standalone. You can pick this one up, number 15, and then you can go to number 4, and you can go to number 6.
Yeah.
They're all out there, and you can read them anywhere you want. But is there a common theme either from this book or from even the series itself that once they read through it, is there something there you have as an idea of a takeaway? You know, if they got this out of the book or out of the series, then you've done your job as an author.
Well, boy, there are certain thematic things that are important in the series. One is these are really about America, past, present, and future. That's what they're about. They take place almost all in Arizona. Bernie, the detective, his family has been there for a long time and used to own a lot of land, and now it's just their one little house where Chet and Bernie live. But I know in this book, for example, in A Farewell to Arfs, we find out through this retired journalist named Etta Cohn, who had a column called AZ Desperados from A to Z. So that was her crime bulletin, AZ being Arizona.
Right.
But it turns out that she and Bernie's father, who's long dead, died when Bernie was 8, had something going. And we've already met Bernie's mom in the series, who's described as a piece of work living with husband number 3 or 4 in Florida. So the story of Bernie and how he got to be the man he is, because he's a war hero, he has a wounded leg from the war. And every time, they meet somebody who was, in the field of battle with him in the Middle East, these guys show up and they pound him on the back and they just love him. But we never find out exactly what he did. Whereas a lot of other people meeting him think that he's just some kind of, loner and loser. But in fact, he's a kind of American male struggling in these days. And he's still a kind of paladin figure in a world that is highly complex. And so in this book, which is really, he's dealing with some of these very complex AI people. There's a character named Milo Morster. And if his name reminds you of Elon Musk, I'm sure it's an accident. But people like this, who are these, big dreamers who, in fact, when Chet and Bernie show up at Milo's space center out in the desert, Milo is very friendly because he thinks that they're there because he's running a contest to find a dog to send it to the moon, right? And that's not what they're there at all for. But it's that kind of complexity that so I'm going to say that it really is about, it's about what novels should be about, American novels, and that's this country.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you always, in the series, you always formulate, Chet and Bernie in particular, like you had mentioned, that we learn a little bit more about him. So that never goes away. So, I keep going back to this sort of idea, this golden nugget with this wraparound. So you have this great mystery, this great topic, this great thing that we're dealing with. And by the way, we still have Chet and Bernie, and we're going to learn a little bit more about Bernie. So that never goes away. So it's not just, okay, hey, as a reminder, here's Chet and Bernie, and by the way, here's their next adventure. Yeah, we get that. But on the other hand, we learn a little bit more tidbits about what's going on in their world. And I always love that about how you put together this series.
Thank you. I would say that what I haven't mentioned, and I think it's the most important thing, actually. And isn't that always the way? Right? You hang up the phone and you forgot but I think the most important thing, and that readers who don't know the series will see right away, is the voice of Chet, who's telling the story. He has a unique voice, and that's what, I hear from readers, all the time, who've fallen in love with that voice. And they even send me these little Chetisms, sayings of Chet, and stuff like that. And he means this, it's humbling, but it's almost like he's a companion of them too. Yeah. Even though he's an imaginary figure.
Well, absolutely. You can, the way it's written with Chet and Bernie, we're reading this in print, but yet we visualize it. And I think it's very important for an author to do. We have now my concept of how Bernie looks and acts and things may be slightly different than what you had originally put down or the next fan had put down, but we have an idea. We grow comfortable with who we believe they are.
Yes.
And like you mentioned earlier, this is part of your family. It's not hard for you to write about them because they're part of your family. So you have a vision and a story that you want to move forward to tell about Chet and Bernie.
Absolutely. And I'm very fortunate that I just love writing this voice. When I sit down and I'm writing Chet, I shift into it and I'm delighted to kind of be in his head. So, I don't know if you yourself, Tim, but some of the listeners, who've read some series fiction, mystery series, and they love the first book in a series and they love the second and the third one. Well, it's good, but not. And then the fourth one, they're actually forcing themselves to finish. Well, what happened? Well, why? It's the same person writing it. What happened? And the answer is the writer ran out of enthusiasm for the project.
Yeah.
And you can't fake it. The voice of Chet makes me enthusiastic.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things is for an author, that could be very easily fallen into is the fact by the time if you're fortunate enough to have a series and you've got the third, the fourth, fifth book, you almost feel compelled at times without pressure from anyone else that I got to do something different. I've got to write a different type of series, or I've got to introduce some new characters because either A, I'm losing touch with my characters, or B, the audience must be losing touch. When in reality, most of the time, I would hazard to guess that the audience, the fans, they want the same people. I mean, they're going to write you serious letter or emails if you take all of a sudden Chet and Bernie's not in the book or the neighbors are not in the book, that you're going to get some emails.
Okay, so there's a big I introduce new ones in every book, but there's a big cast of characters way too big to have them all come back into a book. And some are canine characters too. There's Shooter, who's actually an offspring of Chet. And I just today I got email saying Shooter isn't he's not in this one. Is he coming back soon? So I have to do that. But I should point out that in terms of my own writing, I'm writing a whole other series at the same time about a woman named Mrs. Plansky, and she's not a dog and it's not told by a dog. So Mrs. Plansky's Revenge came out last summer.
Nice. Very nice. All right. So before I let you off the hook, I've been teasing about the whole AI thing. And we've heard the pros and the cons. We know to invest all of our money in AI now, we have a chance, all these wonderful things. But from a publishing standpoint, my take on it at the moment is sort of like maybe 10 years ago, maybe it's been a little bit longer. But if you remember when digital books came out, and soon we will have no more bookstores and we won't be printing any more hard copy books because everybody will want digital downloads. And then we realize, no, that's not the case because we have, the wonderful books in our hands and we love them. Same thing with AI. I keep reading about the horror stories that AI is going to infiltrate the publishing industry and we will have AI authors and this will cut into the funds and the ability for authors to write, et cetera, et cetera. Through your research for this book, A Farewell to Arfs, or just your general knowledge and interest in it, what's your take on that from an author standpoint? Is AI the gloom and doom of the now present, or is it somewhere in between?
Well, if you're talking about AI actually writing novels that are good,
well,
I think
I didn't necessarily say good, but yes, writing novels.
I think AI right now can write novels that are bad, but I think we're a long way from AI writing novels that are good. A long, long way. That'll be one of the if this march of AI continues, that'll be one of the very last things. You can see AI, of the arts. I would say that music is much more threatened because it's fundamentally mathematical. Right? I mean, music is
right.
But this is not. This is not. And to make something original out of AI, using AI, to me, I think that we're a long, long way. And originality, from my standpoint, is everything in novel writing. So I'm not gloom and doom on it yet.
Good. I'm not either. And, I can't predict the future, nor would I if I could. But, it's one of those things where I think there's going to be some helpfulness from a publishing standpoint and writing standpoint. There's going to be a lot of helpfulness in that. There could be some harm if it's not controlled properly or done properly. But, when reading one of your books or, other great authors, your story and your heartbeat comes through the book. You can tell the difference between something that was generated by AI now, and I think it's going to be that way in the future, because you need a good author who's intimate with the characters and knows their story better than anybody to be able to relay that to the audience.
Well, I think so. And there's such a thing as soul, right? And I believe in soul, and I don't think it can be faked.
There you go. Love it. Believe in soul. It can't be faked. I love it. I think that's another song and another book. I think we could write that one together. Well, everybody pick up a copy of the book. It's the 15th in the series of the Chet and Bernie Mystery series. It's called Farewell to Arfs by our good friend Spencer Quinn. Spencer, tell us a little bit about where can people find out more about you, where you're going to be, how you can tell the other authors that you never get writer's block. Where can they find you?
Well, the tour for Farewell to Arfs is over. I was across the country, so that's over. But Chet's on Facebook, Chet the dog. And also, you can go to peterabrahams.com/Spencer Quinn, and there's everything there about the series.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, everybody check out those sites and join the fun. Write the next great title.
Yeah, send me a title.
Yeah, Return to Barks or something like that. It's not a farewell. So, and of course, everybody pick up a copy. It's Farewell to Arfs, the 15th in the Chet and Bernie Mystery series. Pick them all up and just put them on your desk or your nightstand and mix them all up. Because you can start at any one and go to the next one. It doesn't matter.
Send me a photo of that.
Yeah, there we go. Love it. Well, Spencer, great to see you and hear from you again. We look forward to hearing more about all the activity you got going on. And, of course, we're looking forward to seeing the 16th in the Chet and Bernie Mystery series.
Thank you, Tim. The pleasure was mine.
Absolutely. Well, good to see you. Good to hear from you. Well, we're coming to the end of the show today. I want to thank everyone for listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. I want to thank the producers and sponsors for making this show possible. Drop us a line if you want to be the next guest, or if you want to hear more from your favorite artist, you can go to petliferadio.com, and we will entertain your comments, answer your questions, and bring on the people you want to hear from most. So till next time, write a great story about the animals in your life, and who knows, you may be the next guest on Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have a great day.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.